first graders. I'm so excited to be here talking to you about making inferences. So come with me and we'll learn about what an inference is and why readers make them. Before we talk about why readers make inferences, we need to know what an inference is. And an inference is something that a reader does while they're reading. So when you're reading, readers always look for clues. Clues from pictures, clues from the text on the page, and a juicy way to say that is evidence. Evidence is just information that you find in a picture or the words on the page. And we're going to mix that together with things that we already know. So we're going to take evidence from the story, and then we're going to take information that's already stored in our brain, and we call that information schema. Schema is just a juicy way to say what's already stored in your brain. For example, we might be reading a story about a storm, and in the story, the author wrote that Sam heard a loud boom. Okay? So the evidence from the story is that Sam heard a loud boom. And we already know that thunder can make loud noises, right? So if we take our evidence and add in our schema that thunder could make a loud noise, we could make an inference. An inference is when you mix evidence plus schema, and we could infer that Sam was in a thunderstorm. Okay? So let's practice making an inference using a picture first. So remember, in the very beginning of first grade, when we came into your classrooms, one of the first strategies we taught you was to check the pictures, right? So let's check this picture and see what we notice. I notice that there's two girls. It's outside. They have these fancy outfits on, like a tutu and this long flowy skirt, and they have their hair up in buns. Do you notice anything else? So now that we gathered some evidence from our photograph, let's see if we can add our evidence and our schema to make an inference. So one thing that we noticed was that both girls were wearing these fancy dance costumes, right? And do you know anything about dance? I know, because Mariana takes dance, that in the spring, usually they have a dance recital to show off all of the things that they've learned all year. So that's what's in my schema, that they have a dance recital. Do you guys know anything else about dance? So if we put together our evidence, which was both girls are wearing fancy costumes, and we know that usually in the spring that you might have a dance recital to show off everything that you know, we could make the inference, we could infer that maybe they just had their dance recital, or they were taking a picture right before their dance recital, right? They got all dressed up and maybe their parents wanted to take a picture of them so they could remember this day. Great job. So now that we know what an inference is and how to make one, let's talk a little bit about why readers make inferences. Why, as readers, is it a good idea to be looking for clues and thinking about what you know and kind of thinking about that as you're reading, because we know that readers are thinkers. So why do readers make inferences? Well, it helps the reader understand the story better, right? If you're thinking about the story, in the reading room, we're always telling you that reading is thinking, and you need to be thinking about what's happening. So if you're only thinking about the words on the page, and you're not thinking about why things are happening or what you already know about things that are happening in the story, you're really missing out as a reader. And authors are tricky people. Sometimes they don't always put everything in writing. They kind of want you guys to be detectives. So they leave these little clues along the way, and then you have to put all those clues together to kind of put the puzzle together. And that's one reason that reading can be super fun and exciting. And we call that reading between the lines, when authors put little clues down to see if you're paying attention. And also, when we infer, it helps us understand how characters might be feeling, right? A lot of times, I bet you've talked about in writers' workshop that writers show readers how characters are feeling. They don't tell them. So the writer might show the character running to their room and slamming their door. And we would have to make the inference that that character is either really upset or mad about something, right? But the writer didn't say that. The writer didn't say Tina was mad. They said Tina ran down the hall, slammed her door. Okay, and then it's your job as a reader to make that inference to understand how Tina's feeling. So now that we've practiced making an inference using a picture and we know why readers make inferences, let's read this small paragraph together and see if you can help me find some evidence in the paragraph, and then let's see if you can make an inference all by yourself using just the story. So let's read this story. It's called Drip, Drip, Drip. Oh, that reminds me of last week. It was so rainy out. Jesse looked outside his bedroom window. Drip, drip, drip. Everything was wet. He wanted to go outside to play. Drip, drip, drip. Then Jesse got an idea. He went to ask his mom about it. "This is going to be so much fun," shouted Jesse as he ran out the door with a big splash. "Thanks, Mom," Jesse yelled. Okay. I made the inference while I was reading that it's raining out. Can you look back in our paragraph and can you find some evidence that would make me think that it's raining? If you said everything was wet, you're right, because everything was wet, and the schema that was in my head was, well, if he's looking outside and everything's wet, I know that rain makes things wet, so I think it's raining. That's my inference. Awesome job, first graders. Let's try another one together. Another inference I made was that Jesse asked his mom if he could go play in the rain. Can you find some evidence in the paragraph that would make me think that? If you said Jesse got an idea and he went to ask his mom, you would be right. When I read that he had an idea, I was thinking, I know. In my head, my schema was thinking, I know that he was probably going to go ask his mom for something because he said he had an idea, and you should always ask a grown-up for permission before doing something. And in my head, I know when it rains, my little girls always want to jump in puddles. So that made me think that he was going to play and ask his mom if he could play in the rain. Okay, now it's your turn. I'm going to give you some evidence, and I want to see if you can make an inference. Here's some more evidence from the story. This is going to be so fun, shouted Jesse as he ran out the door. When you read that, does anything pop in your head? Do you have any schema about when you say that something's going to be fun and running around? If I've seen many of you guys do this, if you think something's going to be fun, and you might run right into the reading room or run right back into your classroom or run right into PE, and you look so happy. So I'm thinking that if he's saying the evidence is going to be so much fun, and it sounds like he's really happy, what inference can you make from that? Do you think his mom's going to let him play in the rain? I'm going to make that inference too. I think if he's so happy and he's running out the door, that makes me think he's going to go outside and he's going to play in the rain. Awesome job! Awesome job helping me make inferences, first graders. I have another story that I thought we could read together, but before we do, I thought we could review some skills that we work on in the reading room together. You guys know as first graders that we are always telling you to be flexible with your vowel sounds. And remember, being flexible just means that you know that vowels can make two sounds, and if one sound doesn't sound right, then you're going to try the other sound. Let's practice making both sounds for our vowels. Let's start with A. A, A, A. A, A, A. A, A, A. A, A, A. Let's move on to Ed. E. E, E, E. E, E, E. E, E, E. E, E, E. Let's go to I, our itchy guy. I, I, I. I, I, I. I, I, I. I. We have O for octopus. Ah, ah, ah. O, O, O. Ah, ah, ah. O, O, O. And then we have U for umbrella. Uh. U, U, U. Uh. U, U, U. Awesome job, first graders. At Brat's school, We're also always trying to be strategic readers. And strategic is just a juicy word that means you use your reading strategies to help you figure out words you don't know. So let's quickly review our reading strategies. You can check the picture, think about the sounds in a word, think of words that might make sense, look for word families or other parts you know. You can read past the puzzling word. If you puzzle through a word, you should always go back to the beginning of the sentence and start again to make your reading sound smooth. You can be flexible with your vowel sounds, and you can break words into smaller parts. Remember, you can use any one of these strategies to help you figure out words you might get stuck on while you're reading. So I chose this story today because I know it's a topic that you guys might have a lot of schema on, and that's going to help you make some inferences when we're reading today. And our title of our story is called Loose Tooth. And I know a lot of you have had loose teeth this year, and many of you have lost teeth. And I'm wondering how many of you have lost some teeth while we've been out from school. I'm sure you've been keeping the tooth fairy busy. Before we read our story, I want to tell you a little bit about the story and show you some tricky words you might not be able to use your strategies to help you figure out. So the title is called The Loose Tooth, and it's about a little boy who has a loose tooth, and it's kind of bothering him a lot. So he's thinking about all the ways that it might fall out, and so he's feeling a little bit nervous. So let's take a picture walk and see some of the ways he's imagining his tooth might fall out. So here's our main character, and it looks like he's sitting in his room, and he's got his finger in his mouth because his tooth is very wiggly. Wiggly. Can you look down and see if you can find that word wiggly? Wiggly. What letter is wiggly going to start with? There you go. If you said right here, you would be right. Do you guys see that word family in there? Egg, wiggly. It has an ending that we really haven't talked about, the ly ending. So I thought that would be a little tricky for you. So his tooth was getting very wiggly. So he starts to imagine all of these different things that could happen to his tooth. What's he thinking about in this thought bubble? What are all of those things? He's imagining that he's eating all this corn on the cob. That's kind of hard to eat if you have a loose tooth. And look, there it is. He's imagining he bit into the corn on the cob and his tooth got stuck right in it. Oh my goodness. So as the story goes on, he continues to imagine different ways that his tooth might fall out. And one of the ways that he's imagining, if you look over here on this page, look at the picture. He kind of looks like confused or really tired. He says, maybe I'll lose my tooth while I'm walking in my sleep. And then he says, I'll probably wake up when I run into the mailbox. Oh, no wonder he has that look on his face. It looks like he banged into the mailbox so hard that he broke the stick. And then he's probably really sleepy and thinking to himself, what happened? But the word I want you to try to find is probably. Probably. Probably is going to start with one of our blends. Purr. What two letters are going to make the purr sound. If you said PR, you're right. Can you find the word probably? There it is. And there's that ly ending again. Probably. So he'll probably wake up if he ran into a mailbox. I would hope so. Okay, so we saw that he has a wiggly tooth. He's thinking that maybe it will fall out when he eats corn on the cob, or maybe when he's sleepwalking and running into mailboxes. So let's go back to the beginning and read the words and see if his tooth does come out and all the different ways he imagines it coming out. Loose tooth. While you're reading, you'll notice that Mrs. Fusco has put a strategy card on each page. So if you get stuck on a word, I want you to check the strategy card. And if you're not sure which strategy to try first, look for the bumblebee. That will be a clue to try that strategy first. My tooth is really getting wiggly. I think I'm going to lose it soon. I wonder how. Oh, I see two little words there. May, that's what month we're in. May be, maybe. Maybe I'll lose my tooth eating. Oh, I'm going to check that picture because I don't know this word. Maybe I'll lose my tooth eating corn on the cob. Corn on the cob. Maybe. There's maybe again. Maybe I'll lose my tooth at school. I'm not sure what this word is, but I do see a sight word in there. Some. I see the silent E too. I'm. Sometimes the lunchroom gets a little yeah. That doesn't sound right. I'm going to try the other sounds that those vowels can make. Crazy. Sometimes the lunchroom gets a little crazy. Maybe I'll lose my tooth on the school bus. I'm going to cover that ending. Helped. I helped Sam pull his last tooth. He said he'd help pull mine. Oh my goodness. Look at Sam. He's driving away in the bus and he yanked the tooth right out. I don't think I would want to lose my tooth that way. Maybe I'll lose my tooth when I least expect it. Maybe I'll lose my tooth when I least expect it. What does that mean? Least expect. When you least expect something, it means you would never think it's going to happen right then. So it's kind of like a surprise. I could trip on the sidewalk and lose it that way. Oh no, he tripped over the hose. And the bug is carrying his tooth. Oh my goodness. Let's take a look at this picture. Maybe I'll lose my tooth when I open. That doesn't sound right. I'm going to try to be flexible. I open. Maybe I'll lose my tooth when I open my closet door. I never go in there unless I really have to. Let's see if we can make an inference. My evidence here is I never go in there unless I really have to. So he never goes in his closet unless he really has to. Well, I know that sometimes when people are trying to clean up their room and maybe they're trying to do it quickly, instead of putting everything back where it should be, people might just like try to put everything in their closet and just shut the doors because it makes their room look nice and neat, but really they just shoved everything in their closet. So I'm going to make an inference that his closet is pretty messy because he just shoves all his toys in there instead of picking them up. Maybe I'll lose my tooth while I'm playing with my little sister. Let's make another inference. Let's infer what they're pretending to play. So our evidence is I'm playing with my little sister. And if we look at the illustration, we see his little sister is on his back. She's got like this rope in his mouth. Yikes, that's probably hurting his tooth a little bit. But she's got this big hat on. And I know that cowboys sometimes wear that hat, and that usually in movies and things that we see, they ride horses. I wonder if they're playing cowboy, because I see that they're imagining that there's cactus, and it just reminds me of like an old Western movie I might see with cowboys. So I'm going to make the inference that they're playing cowboys. Maybe I'll lose my tooth while walking in my sleep. I'll probably, I remember we talked about that word, I'll probably wake up when I run into the, oh, I see the word box. Box. Mailbox. I'll probably wake up when I run into the mailbox. Yikes, what a terrible way to wake up. What if I really lose my tooth and can't find it? I guess I'll have to have a talk with the, look who it is, with the tooth fairy. I guess I'll have to have a talk with the tooth fairy. Or maybe I just worry too much. Ah, look what happened. He spent this whole story worrying about all the different ways his tooth might fall out. His friend might pull it with a string while he rides the bus. He might trip on the sidewalk and ants might take it. He thought that maybe he would trip in the lunchroom and spill food all over himself. But really what happened was he was just sitting in his room and it just popped out. I bet that's happened to you guys a lot. I know it's even happened in the reading room a couple of times. Awesome job, first graders. You guys did a great job using your strategies, and we even made some inferences while we were reading. Like on page 8, when we saw that he said, I never go in there unless I really have to. Remember, he was talking about his closet, and we said, we know that sometimes when you're asked to clean your room and maybe you're really not into it, you might just shove everything into your closet. So we made the inference that when he has to clean his room, he just shoves everything into his closet since he doesn't like going in there. And then when we were reading on page 9, we made the inference about what they were playing. And he said, I'm playing with my sister. But then we also used the picture to see that she was sitting on her brother's back and she had the big hat on her head. And our schema told us that cowboys wear big hats and ride horses. And so we made the inference that he was playing cowboys with his sister. I had a great time learning about inferences with you guys this week. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I hope when you're reading your stories to mom or dad or grandma, that you stop and you make some inferences. Try finding that evidence in the text and then using your background knowledge. I know many of you are awesome at telling me things that you already know. You have a lot of schema. So use that schema and be reading detectives to make some inferences when you read this week. Until next time, keep reading.